And we back. Nowstalgia Pod coming at you, giving you your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan with my co-host, Dave Martinson. Dave, Chance the Rapper came out with his new album, The Big Day, and we got a big podcast coming at you. How you doing first, though?
I'm doing well, man. Lots of exciting things to talk about, both good and bad. Happy to be back, like Chance.
Little tease for you right there. And before we get too far into it, and Dave tells you what was good and bad about this past week, hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod to find all the ways to follow the podcast and give us a rating and review on iTunes. All of it helps us a lot. Also, go to our Twitter at nostalgiapod and give us a follow there and interact with us. Dave, last week we did a bit of a different podcast for us. We weren't reviewing the weekly pop culture, but more of a broader scope, talking about Tarantino movies, Emmys, Emmy nominations. So we have a lot to catch up on. And one major thing that came out last Friday was it last Friday or last Monday?
Two Saturdays now.
2 Saturdays, geez. Yeah. Been a while. Was Marvel's announcement of Phase 4. They were at Comic-Con. Was that the one in San Diego, I assume?
Correct.
Yes, the big one, the big West Coast one.
Very big one.
And there was a lot of different news there. We're not going to run through all of it. There's been a lot written about it, some very good articles. But I wanted to ask you, what are you most excited for from the Phase 4 announcements?
Yeah, a lot there for sure. And not a whole lot was surprising. We did a video about what we expected to see in Phase 4, or announced anyway, a few months ago. Check that out, youtube.com/nostalgiapod. But what stood out to me, which was something that we kind of expected, but from August 2019, next month, until February 2021, 18 months, a full year and a half, we're only getting 2 Marvel movies, Black Widow and Eternals. It's kind of interesting to get this nice little extended break, considering the past 2 years we've had 3 full movies a year. Overall, though, it's nothing's too surprising. Thor 4 is probably the most exciting movie that was officially announced. Having Portman come back and do the Lady Thor storyline, Taika's back as well. That just sounds really cool. Doctor Strange, they have Scarlet Witch coming back into the fold. Interesting. It seems like they're really going for it with that one. I was surprised, though, overall, that we're not getting Black Panther 2 until 2022 at the earliest, which is kind of surprising. I really thought, we already know Coogler signed back on. You would have thought 2021 was a shoo-in for that, but guess not.
Yeah, I wonder if Coogler has something else that he's working on or trying to do first. But I agree. Thor is probably the thing I'm most excited for. The last Thor movie, which we reviewed, you can check that out on our YouTube page, was one of our favorites of recent. It hit just the perfect tone in terms of a superhero movie that infused a lot of charisma and humor into it, and Chris Hemsworth really leveled up in terms of Thor as a character. Just a really awesome pairing, and I think pulling Portman back into that fold and the Lady Thor thing is a nice wrinkle to it. Also, you have to assume the Guardians are probably going to show up in some way, or at least some of them will be involved in that, so that will make that fun.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, we know there's 3 dates with no movies in 2022, and the February one, I think we're all assuming that's Black Panther 2. The May one, probably Captain Marvel 2, and the July one, likely Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which we already know. We know these movies are being made, but they didn't give us dates or titles. So, would Guardians appear in Thor a year earlier? Maybe some of them. Wouldn't be surprised. What I was thinking about, honestly, is them bringing Portman back in a real way. Kind of makes sense, because there's not really a whole lot like Thor adjacent characters left. They're all kind of dead. We know Loki won't be back. And like all the Asgard people that no one was that attached to anyway, most of them are gone anyway. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But we know Fantastic Four is officially in development. That's obviously very exciting. We went into that a few months ago. But the biggest surprise, of course, is that Mahershala Ali is playing Blade. And the fact that he just put his dick on the table after winning his second Oscar and called up Feige and crew and it's like, yeah, I want to do Blade. And they're like, okay. Now it'll probably be PG-13. We have no reason to believe it won't be PG-13 if it's an MCU movie. But still, that's exciting as hell. So, but that sounds very far away.
Yeah,
Either way, didn't see coming.
definitely a huge flex by Mahershala. Where are you at with Blade? Do you like the original ones with Wesley Snipes?
The first one is very influential, very important, and I think that's the only one that you could say is good. The
Yeah.
others, two and Trinity are pretty mad. I mean, at the time though, they were pretty well liked, but yeah, they don't hold up at all. First one's
Yeah,
good though.
but like Wesley and that and just the Blade outfit is just such a
Yeah,
iconic image, and they're fun movies. Even when they're bad, they're still pretty fun. So I think Mahershala is, I mean, amazing casting, and he probably knows that he can kill this role. So I'm really excited for that. I'm also really excited for Shang-Chi,
yeah,
which I think has potential to be a major film for Marvel because it probably is going to get a huge uh, backing from overseas, specifically China and Asia. And it's pretty cool because the story of who's playing Shang-Chi, his name is Simu Liu, tweeted at them like 2 years ago, something like, whenever you want to talk Chang Li or Shang-Chi, hit me up.
Mhm.
And 2 years later, it was cast as it. So that's a pretty cool
Spoken into
story.
existence. Really cool.
So as always, shoot your shot. That's kind of the message. A lot. I mean, we're going to be talking about Marvel obviously for the next however many years. Not going anywhere. I am amazed at, you talked about how going into Spider-Man Far From Home, you were feeling a little bit of superhero fatigue, a little bit like, do we need this movie this quickly? I think a lot of people were feeling that way, but
MCU fatigued in particular. Like I'm excited as fuck for Joker, for example.
right.
But MCU in particular, post Endgame.
Did you feel excited after this Phase 4 announcement?
Yeah, certainly. They didn't immediately announce a team up. We again a few months ago we theorized about potential big bads post Thanos and Kang and all that stuff, and where they would try and take this. And at least for the moment, it feels like there might be less of a central through line the way the Infinity Saga was all weaved together. Now, I'm sure when we see Black Widow in May, given that that's a period prequel film, we'll get some set up, and I'm sure Shang-Chi will introduce more. So I'm sure that's a stupid thing to say, but at least right now, the semblance of it's not quite as connected, and the movies get to kind of be their own weird things, kind of what DC is doing right now. That's just kind of exciting to me. I just find it more interesting artistically. So we'll see how real that is as the movies come out, of course. But you know, the other thing that I think stood out was that the shows. We already knew about almost all these shows. Baron Zemo from Civil War is coming back for Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's an interesting wrinkle, but it ultimately feels like these shows are just like, well, you guys won't be in the movies ever again, so you guys get these shows. I mean, Scarlet Witch will be Strange. Other than that, I don't think we're going to see any of those guys for a long time.
Yeah, no, and WandaVision is like the worst name of a TV show I feel like I could possibly think of. Anyways, why don't we move on? Because like I said, we'll be talking Marvel for a while. We want to start with an album by Maxo Kream. I didn't get to this album, so I'm going to kind of let you take the floor here.
Yeah, man. So Maxo Kream, we have his single "Meet Again" on our Spotify playlist, Nostalgia Best of 2019. So make sure you follow that. And that was the first single from this new album, Brandon Banks, his second album. And Maxo Kream is a guy who I became aware of in the weirdest ways. Like he was featured on one of the first really old Playboy Cardi hits, Fetty. He was just a featured verse on it at the end. And then he popped back up on my radar like in 2017 with Mars, this loose single that had a really fun Uzi uh, chorus that did pretty well for him. And then Pumpkin, his debut album, comes out early last year, 2018, and got critical acclaim. It's a great record. We didn't review it, but it was really awesome. And this new one, Brandon Banks, he just continues to level up on the promise we saw in Pumpkin. And what's cool about Maxo Kream is he's a Houston rapper, and he collabs with Travis on this, which is a nice, cool thing to see. But he's a Houston rapper who is really about the like the hard street life, but he tells his stories in an interesting way. He was previously incarcerated, previously ran drugs, pretty uh, real rap sheet for sure. But now, since the past few years when he's been like a full-time rapper, he's just really good storyteller, which is really cool. There's a lot of, street rappers and trappers and all that. And a lot of times they don't have a lot to say, and like I always think of like a guy who from Chicago, like Little Dirk, for example. They don't even sound anything alike, but he's always talked up as someone who's really personal and really detailed storyteller about his struggles, and yet I never felt like he said anything at all. Whereas Maxo Kream, I think because he's a competent rapper and because he has really interesting ways to frame like the stories he's telling, sometimes it's really matter of fact, sometimes it's much more metaphorical. Uh, it just really compelling street shit. So I wanted to talk about this. This came out 2 Fridays ago, and I knew it wasn't going to get a whole lot of attention. He's not like a super big rapper, but I wanted to just mention this album just because I think it has a lot to like, depending on if you're really any kind of hip hop fan, because there are songs that go hard and songs that tell a story and songs that do both. And I think like Meet Again, for example,
Mhm.
you can really dig into that a lot still as well. The last track, his second single, really like these songs. Also, awesome features. 3 a.m. great Schoolboy Q feature, and Murder Block has an awesome ASAP Ferg feature where he kind of flips the Bone Thugs flow from Notorious Thugs, the old Biggie song. So yeah, if you like storytelling in your rap, you like that like Houston sound. Houston's hot right now with Megan Thee Stallion.
Yeah.
Don't sleep on Maxo Cream, man. This is a great record.
I was gonna say Houston seems to be really having a moment right now. Travis, Megan Thee Stallion,
Yep.
and Maxo. I saw Pitchfork gave this album some love too. So, Houston, got to dig the rap scene right now. Why don't we move on though to Rich Brian, a guy we reviewed last year, his debut album Amen. Really interesting that he's a person who has risen to fame in a more it's not as unorthodox as it used to be, but kind of through like YouTube videos and kind of goofy stuff. Originally was it like Real Chiga was his rap name?
Rich Chiga, yeah.
Rich Chiga.
That's the big breakout hit for him.
And then he dropped Amen, and I think we were pleasantly surprised at how good it was, because I think our expectations going into it were kind of low. He's someone that didn't have a huge musical background, so we were like, what are we gonna expect? The Sailor feels like a major step up for him, in my opinion. This sophomore album, at least from what I hear, is I hear him going from this almost like sideshow kind of like gimmicky person into like a real artist with this, and it was really exciting. The production on it was super smooth. I thought there was a lot of really cool choices in terms of the sound he was going for. But before I get too far into it, how did you feel about Rich Brian's sophomore album, The Sailor?
I agree with everything you said. Yeah, the growth is just so apparent, and he turns 20 in September, going from someone who wasn't given off the energy of being a serious musician early with the Rich Chiga name, the Dat Stick songs, all that, then to Amen, where he established himself. No, he's real rapper and he's actually pretty good. And now we have Sailor, where he's leveled up again, I think lyrically for sure, but also diversifying his sound. It is happened in not that long stretch of time. And as you said, I'm really excited just for the future of him. We know the 88 Rising base is really strong, and it's a good support system for all the Asian artists they have in their stable right now. And yeah, I'm just really excited to see where he keeps going, because I think there's a lot to like on this, which was the case with Amen. But again, he just keeps taking the next step, and it's really cool to see, because again, he's not someone who's super mainstream in the hip hop space. So love it.
Yeah, I think the thing that most impressed me in terms of this like step up as an artist is our knock in our last review was his songs didn't have a lot to say on Amen. They were kind of jokey, but it seemed they were very surface level. But I feel like on this album, he really starts to dig in a little bit more into his story, his rise to fame, failed relationships, things like that. It seemed like he just had a little more to say, and he said it so confidently. And he really, I think, was able to display that he's getting a grasp for flow. Because I think on Amen, another thing that kind of stood out was his flow was sometimes too similar from song to song and didn't really stand out. But this, you really notice him changing up his flow from song to song and even mid-song sometimes, which I thought was a really good sign for him growing as a rapper.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just thinking of the recent releases on 88. We talked about the Head in the Clouds group album, but more specifically, Joji's album Ballads 1, and then this year, Higher Brothers with 5 Star. And I guess Joji's actually kind of similar just because the way they both came up as non-traditional musicians. But I mean, Rich Brian's kind of always been tabbed as like the pure hip hop figurehead of '88, but I'm just I like this more than anything else I've heard from the label thus far, just because I think that the ambition is strongest on this. But I mean, like Higher Brothers too, like they don't have the lyrical content Rich Brian shows on this, but they're just making like really good Chinese trap, and that's totally cool.
Yep.
And like it sounds awesome, and they have good features. But Rich Brian, because he's not in that lane, never was in that lane post that stick. You kind of wanted to see like where is he going to go? And as you said, on Amen, we didn't really know what the end game was for him, just because it was ultimately middling, if proving competence, right? And now releasing songs like Yellow, which lyrically he's really exploring his both journey to the States as a immigrant from Indonesia, as well as a Asian artist in a space that does not have a lot of Asians. He's tackling a lot of stuff there. And meanwhile, that's the first real, and that was one of the lead singles, but that's one of the first songs they've released that is very melodic, something he hasn't really done at all. And the fact that it actually is produced well and sounds pretty good is almost like a bonus to me. Like I was just going to appreciate him taking the swing, but I actually think it lands. And then meanwhile, on the same album, we have a song like Kids, which is a traditional boom bap rap, where Rich Brian's like, oh yeah, I'm still like a good rapper. Like listen to this. And he actually has real bars on that. Shouting out 88, shouting out Nipsey and Mac. I like that song a lot. And then towards the end, it's only like 100 Degrees. Again, get to that melodic flow, almost like more like a pop trap song, So I think that the variety sprinkled in around taking some bigger lyrical swings, just it's pretty impressive considering, again, the journey he's been on in only a few years.
Yeah, you mentioned Kids. That was one that stood out to me right away. I really like the horns in that, and then it brings in these this like simple beat underneath it. It just feels so triumphant. Something that actually reminded me a little bit of Chance in a way. Someone we're gonna be talking about, but his last album, Coloring Book, was just so triumphant in that same sense. And then I thought the ending, Slow Down Turbo to Curious with Joji was really really strong. So just some really great songs on here. And going back to like that sound choice, I feel like he kept it simple for the most part. There wasn't like a lot of like complex beats or anything like that, but he chose to use like different instruments, like a song like Curious. It has just like the simple guitar loop that keeps playing over and over with these like woodwind flutes coming in at the end, and just this really simple beat, but he just flows over it so naturally and creates this very like I think unique sound to what he wants to be as an artist. That melodic sense you talked about. So just some really good stuff here from Rich Brian. Really excited to see where he goes moving forward. Any other songs that stood out to you, or any last thoughts?
No, I think you nailed those. Second track, Rap Pop 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 with RZA. Getting a RZA feature, and not like a mailed in RZA feature, like actually like fits the song, mentions Rich Brian. Like that's also a crazy good cosign.
Yeah,
to say the obvious.
Absolutely. Someone else that got a really good cosign, YBN Cordae. Basically after the YBN the mixtape 2017. 2018 Dre was Dr. Dre was onto this kid and signed him, and there wasn't a lot that time to really
was just working with him.
Okay. But that was, I think, something that caught a lot of people's attention, because it was like this artist doesn't have a lot of workout. It's interesting that Dre is working with somebody with such a small pedigree at this point, but I think he saw something that he was able to bring out in Lost Boy. And that's I think YBN Cordae could be a real serious player in the rap game moving forward. The Lost Boy, is this his debut album?
Yeah, the funny thing is, as we've been talking about, he busted on the scene only a year and a half ago, really, and with the YBN Cordae name anyway. He did a good My Name Is Eminem freestyle, which blew up on the World Star YouTube channel. Then he quickly released J. Cole 1985 response track, which was like, wait a minute, this guy's YBN in his name, yet he's like making a thoughtful, not bitter response to J. Cole talking about the young kids. Damn. And then he had like a few other loose singles. Of course, Kung Fu got a lot of attention. Like, oh wait, and this kid also is like really dexterous with his rapping. Interesting. Let's keep it going. And he was only on a few tracks on that YBN mixtape that you mentioned. Kung Fu was one of those tracks. I think Target, another one, talking about police. He's like, all right, this guy's pretty thoughtful. And then you see the Dre Instagram, as you mentioned, and he just starts getting tons of cosigns everywhere. And beginning of this year, he's featured on Logic's album. Logic's a major rap star. It's pretty good company to have.
Sure.
Despite our thoughts on that album, check that review out. And this whole the hype leading up to this, it makes XXL Freshman obviously just because the talent is so present. And that was when we predicted, no brainer. But we wanted to see a full project from him because the only projects he had I think the past 3 years, they were under a different name. He used to go by what he used to go by? Entendre was his old name. Reminds me of Logic, the way he used to be Professor Logic or whatever it was. But this Lost Boy project, I think came together pretty quickly. We didn't really know it was coming until he released that Bad Idea collab with Chance. And Have Mercy had come out a few months ago and is still on this as well. But yeah, the hype was I think quite high. But as his album lets you know when you listen to it, it was also thusly deserved. And for someone we've been talking about pretty routinely, despite a lack of output, it's pretty validating to have someone deliver when you believed in them at a young age. I'm so hyped that this is as good as it is. What was your takeaway?
No, I like I said, I thought this proved that there's so much potential here. And I think what I found most refreshing about it was, like you said, the YBN name, I think in the past is kind of known for these vicious comebacks and rebuttals in some sense. And this album is just really joyous and really grateful and really positive in a lot of ways. And I found that to be probably the thing I liked most about it. It felt very accessible. And the music was this awesome blend of he's West Coast, right? Technically, or
no, he's from North Carolina.
Yep. Okay, but it sounds a little bit more Chicago than I thought, just because of the infusion of some jazz, hip hop, and things like that in there. But overall, I was just really impressed with how this came together and how he was able to establish himself as someone that we really, should continue to be taking seriously and be excited for. What stood out to you most, or what songs did you like the most?
Yeah. I mean, we knew he was thoughtful. We knew he was respectful of past generations of hip hop. Definitely comes across as someone who's a little more wiser beyond his years, right? I mean, someone asked him about his top fives the other day, and he said Tupac, Biggie, Jay-Z, Nas, and Big L in whatever order. And that's a great list, But a lot of his peers, a lot of them are influenced by Lil Wayne, and more 2000s artists, Gucci Mane, stuff like that, right? But Cordae really has that 90s base of inspiration, which is cool. Another similar to Logic. And what I wanted to see from this was, I wanted to see if he could make songs that can do both. Can you tell a story and make the song still hot? Because that's always something we talk about, where there are artists that have good lyrics, but the songs are sleepy. No one's going to put on your song, even if you have a good message. I think when Lupe's at his worst, that's a common problem. But Lost and Found, the last track on this album, does not have that problem.
No.
RPM, when Anderson .Paak does not have that problem. Broke as Fuck does not have that problem. That has an amazing beat flip halfway through. Meanwhile, he does have some of the slower tracks, and even a song like Have Mercy, which I think is just a competent song as far as the young standard that is Cordae standards. But the diversity in the track list is pretty great. And yeah, I think we could trim this down a little bit, 15 tracks, maybe cut down a little bit. And he switches his flows a lot. Sometimes the flows he uses are a little simple, but I mean, the talent's so obvious, and the ceiling is just so high that I just don't know how you can be too negative. In terms of his peers, I mean, I don't really know who we put with him besides Tierra Whack or someone. It's a short list.
Yeah, it's definitely a short list, and just you kind of spoke to it a little bit, but the collaborators on this: Anderson .Paak, Chance the Rapper, Pusha T, Ty Dolla $ign, Meek Mill. I mean, these are some heavy hitters.
Yep.
And I think they each kind of bring varying degrees of success to their turns on this album. But just the fact that these people want to work with him, and want to be making art with him is really impressive. And yeah, I think Tierra Whack feels like a good comparison for the moment. Just like an artist that seems pretty unique, thoughtful, but in a different way than a lot of artists like them. Tierra Whack, I think especially, is very unique in terms of her thought and perspective on rap and where she's going with it. But only really positive things to say about this Lost Boy album. You already mentioned, I think Broke His Fucking Bad Idea. I also really like Thanksgiving was just a track that stood out to me. But yeah, I don't think there's too many that run long or feel unearned to be on this album, and just a really exciting debut. It's great to be talking about some young artists that really are impressing us, because I think it kind of started off the year hot, and it's been a bit of a lull, I think, as of recently. At least it's felt that way, but this feels like end of summer is bringing the heat.
Sure. Yeah. It's funny. RPM with Anderson, getting a bit of a mixed reception. It's funny. Like I liked it a lot. I think the energy is so great. The beat's awesome. And also at the end when they go into couplets and they go back and forth, it's just really fun. But I think some people are kind of like knocking on the puns and saying it's kind of hokey,
corny.
And yeah. And I mean, like, yeah, sometimes he has corny lines. That's fine with me. He's hardly alone in that perspective. Let's be real. And I think when you can make a song Broke as Fuck right after you make something corny, how much does the corniness matter? I thought the Meek performance on this was pretty good. Like,
yeah,
Meek really brought it for sure. The only thing I raise my eyebrow at every time is calling XXXTentacion the Pac of his time and comparing him to a young Obama. No, it ain't that. I know a lot of people ride for X problems and all, but no, he's not fucking Tupac. That's a stupid thing to say.
Yeah, and certainly not the young Barack Obama. I mean, that's just ludicrous.
Time. No, not actually. But
I agree. Why don't we move on to someone who also dropped their debut album, Chance the Rapper. Dave, I'll let you get on your high horse about that. Go ahead.
I mean, it's not even, my horse is fucking real low with this, man. Chance the Rapper drops his debut album the same day as YBN Cordae. Where's the lie? Well, let me tell you where the lie is. Chance the Rapper won Best Rap Album 2.5 years ago at the Grammys in early 2017. Yes, Coloring Book was initially presented as a mixtape, but then he ran it as an album. That settles that. Not to mention, when Coloring Book came out, Chance took $500K from Apple Music to make it a streaming exclusive. Remember when that was still a thing on the streaming services? Chance the Rapper made $21.5 million in 2018, good for 14th on the Hip Hop Cash Kings list. He didn't even tour last year.
That's crazy.
To call this a debut album is just completely valueless, meaningless thing. And also just super disingenuous because he's the most mainstream of rappers now. And that's not even a judgment statement. I'm just saying it's a stupid
he made a Super Bowl
project.
Commercial. Yeah.
He's
super mainstream.
He did the Kit Kat jingle. Like, you've debuted. Like, this does not, and frankly, my feelings about the album, the feelings about the music are influenced by the grand projections you're putting on this album and calling it your debut. And it just rings really hollow to me. And I just find it really annoying because, again, as people know, I'm a fucking big Chance the Rapper fan. I listened to Aston Rap the day it came out. I've seen him perform 3 times. I'm a big Chance fan, but stop doing this. It's really stupid. That's it.
Well,
I'm done.
I guess my question for you is the big day, his debut album. At least that's what he's calling it. Was this a good album?
Well, it's really long.
Yeah,
there's a lot of fat on it. Like agonizingly long. This is what, an hour 10 minutes.
This ain't a
I don't know if you've
prime
seen
cut of
it.
steak, dog.
No. And that's very curious coming from Chance, a guy who has always been really thoughtful in his sequencing and the overall vibes of his projects. Even the Merry Christmas Little Mama Jeremiah stuff
Mhm.
was pretty tight, you know? And Coloring Book obviously had a really tight gospel inspired vibe. And obviously Acid Rap is basically flawless. Like to then have your debut of all things, your big debut, be demonstratively less focused and more scattershot than your lauded mixtapes. It's not even like the rock cliche. I like the old albums more. It's just that like it feels like you tried less on the new album.
Mhm.
You know, it's So is it a good album? I have a hard time calling it bad because I don't know if there's a lot of stuff that's bad here. It's just I think the intent, the purpose, the message is very unclear. And I think for anyone who's a big Chance fan, I have a hard time understanding how you wouldn't be disappointed in this. Now,
Right.
is it bad? I don't think it's bad, but
No.
it's incredibly underwhelming.
I would agree. I don't think it's bad. But I think it's important to put this into context. So coloring book drops 2016. Since then, like you said, he is a high grossing rapper. Number 14 last year. He is incredibly mainstream. I mean, he is a shill for Kit Kat and what was it, Doritos? Is that the one he did with Backstreet Boys? That commercial?
Yeah. You know,
Um,
one note on that too, I just forgot. So Coloring Book should be perceived as the debut album, right? As we just said.
yeah,
Going off that Acid Rap, he covered the Fader off of one mix of that mixtape. In end of 2015, before Coloring Book was out, he was the first independent unsigned artist to be on SNL. He did all of this
yeah.
with just that mixtape. So
Hmm.
to call Coloring Book not your debut again is just kind of ignoring all the stuff Chance accomplished, as you were just saying. So it's like I think people kind of forget about the context just because he's a president. He's all over the place. But I mean, if you really think about it, it's quite the mental gymnastics, in my opinion.
Right. He has been a symbol for Chicago and especially a Chicago activist recently. He got married recently. He's had a lot of life changes go on. I think as I was listening to this album, my first listen, I texted this to you. I heard it very much as like a two half type album. The first half being like this lead up to this wedding, and then the skits kind of kick in, and there's a lot of emotions and up and down in the first half. And I felt like the second half was much more like a radio power hour where the songs kind of flow together. My second listen, I didn't hear it so much that way, but I heard it as somebody trying to grapple with this transition in their life and what it means to be married, what it means to be moving into, a later stage, I guess a more subdued, settled down stage in their life, in a sense. But I do agree, it felt scattered, and it felt like some of the songs on there were songs that were obvious things that could be put in commercials or put into video games, or that were just kind of fun, upbeat, maybe things that you could see on something like TikTok or something.
Yes,
Just kind of like those
familiar.
like grabby, like catchy songs, not necessarily something like you would have heard on Coloring Book, because that felt very curated to a specific message, whereas this felt kind of like, well, my message is somewhere in here, but there's also going to be these songs that people just kind of bob their head to, and that can be played at a wedding or something like that.
Right. Yeah, and the thing about Coloring Book, it's not like Chance just decided now to like collab with like capital R rappers on his own projects. No problem with 2 Chainz and Lil Wayne won Best Rap Performance at the Grammys, but No Problem really felt like it fit in Coloring Book, even it's at the beginning of the track list. This time around, you have a song like Hot Shower with May in Tokyo and DaBaby, and it's a good DaBaby verse, like most of his
Yeah.
verses this year. But what I just don't like is hearing Chance do basic, normal contemporary rap. That's not what people want to hear from Chance, and that's also not his strength. He's not a special rapper when he's doing that. Um, and I think he was doing a little bit on Groceries, the loose single. from a few months ago. But
Mhm.
that had really fun Murder Beats beat, and it's good enough, but it's also just a loose track. On Hot Shower though, just like, oh, here's Chance just kind of making a rap song with some other rappers.
Yep.
And while Tokyo and DaBaby are, solid or to good on the track, that track I feel like doesn't fit with anything else that it was around, and that just hasn't been a problem with him on past projects when he's collab with people, like, and it just, man, it's just weird because I just like as you said, the wedding vibe, the things changing in Chance's personal life clearly are framing the lyrical content in a certain sense, but I just don't think it's focused enough or at least accessible enough for the listener to like pull through, and like really hit home. And what you're left with is just like it feels like a lot of musing or just
Mhm.
songs that are just completely out of left field. Um, and yeah, I've been having a hard time really sitting with the album because again, it's so long, and as I've been trying to go back and through, it really just feels like it really winds down uh, in the middle, but then there's like 6 more tracks.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's tough, man.
No, I agree with that. I think going back to my point, it almost feels like Chance is caught in between being these two different types of artists right now. There's the acid rap coloring book Chance, obviously, that has a vision and has something he's trying to say and something that he wants to write about. And I think there's also the persona Chance. The Ringer wrote a piece where he's kind of like the new Will Smith in a sense.
Great.
And when you have that kind of persona, you need to make songs that are inoffensive and fun and get people moving. But that doesn't necessarily lend itself to a real artistic vision. It's very hard to blend those two things together. And I think that's kind of what came through. Now, does that make this a bad album or make any of these songs bad? Not necessarily, but I think that's probably what makes it feel so, scattered, so pulled apart. Is that I think he's trying to accomplish or hit too many bullseyes instead of just kind of focusing it down to one thing he's trying to do. That'd be my perception of it. But like we said, we like a lot of the stuff on this album. What songs or what moments stood out to you most?
Yeah. Early on, I liked Eternal a lot with Smino. Other
Mhm.
note, I think unlisting your features is super obnoxious. Don't do this.
So annoying.
Uh, but shout out Genius. I'll give Genius more clicks as a
Yep.
result. Whatever. Eternal with Smino, I really liked. I thought it's really a beat, and you kind of got like the swing with this, side blinks, don't dance like that. That's fun.
Hmm.
I like the Steph bar. I made the 3 more famous than
Yeah.
Steph.
Yep.
Great line, great bar. That song's fun. And then, honestly, my favorite tracks are almost all in a row for the most part, man. It's Let's Go on the Run with Knox Fortune. They collabed on All Night of Calling Book, like that a lot. Uh, Big Fish with Gucci, I like a lot. Ball and
Hmm.
Flossin' with
Yeah.
Shawn Mendes flipping the Brandy I Wanna Be Down, one of her first hits, onto an
Hmm.
EDM beat. Like that song is fucking like cheating. Love it. And then my favorite track, easily my favorite track, is Handsome with Megan Thee Stallion. And that reminds me of what I like about Chance the most. That song sounds like that could have been on Coloring Book. And Chance is super fun, and the song is really upbeat and really awesome to listen to, but it also has lyrically the kind of like PG nature that we expect from Chance. And also actually it's probably one of the best songs that fits the themes of his album, the themes he's trying to convey in terms of talking about his girl and how she's still pretty when she's pregnant and stuff like that. And it's very, very Chance, but also very much fitting this new thing he's trying to do. And then I think Megan's verse is really good. Um, all the way through, even as she switches it up towards the back. So, but other than that, man, I'm having a hard time revisiting most of the tracks. Those like 4 or 5 are the ones I like the most.
Yeah, I had the last two you mentioned there, Ball and Flossin, and what was the other one you said? I'm sorry, I was
Let's Go on the Run,
yeah,
Handsome.
yeah, Handsome. I really liked a lot. But I had a I had a moment listening to this. I was driving in the car my first time listening to it, and when "Do You Remember" comes on, I was
Track
like,
two?
yeah, track two. I was like, who is this singing with him? And I was like, then it got around the second time. I'm like, is this freaking Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie? And it was. And I almost like had to pull over because I was so surprised. Never a collaboration I thought I needed or would like, but Chance and Death Cab really enjoyed that song. It's probably like the most nostalgic, sweetest song, and that was a song that I also felt like could have been on like Coloring Book, just in terms of like the theme of it and the sound. Yeah, you already mentioned it. Eternal is a really good one. Yeah, and Ball and Flossin, just that song, like you said, it's like cheating. It's so freaking good. Shawn Mendes on the track, dog.
Yeah, the Greek
Okay.
god himself.
Yeah, that guy he can't miss right now. Yeah, but overall, I agree. It's not an album I think I'm gonna listen to straight through, but
I mean,
uh,
how do you have the time? It's just so long.
it's almost like he took the Migos route with this, where he's just like, here's a bunch of tracks, and they might sound like the other, they might, but you just pick whichever ones you want and enjoy it that way,
But
which is not what I expected from Chance, but that's where we are.
and it's not like he needs
I
to
don't know.
gain
It's
streams for
still
money. Like it's
no, it's just yeah, it's a little baffling, but we still love you, Chance. I'll definitely try to catch him in concert when he comes around NYC. I think that does it for the music this week. We spent a good amount of time talking about it. Why don't we move on to some TV? Big Little Lies season 2 wrapped up 2 weeks ago now. Man, interesting season 2. So we covered what was it, the first episode, maybe first 2 episodes,
first one.
I think. First episode. And uh it had this moment in the middle. What was it? The episode 4, because it's a 7 episode season. The end of episode 4, it was a short episode, had this really like dramatic ending where it was like cutting to a lot of different things, kind of left you with like all these like questions and kind of wondering, oh, where's this going? And then it felt like it came to a pretty anticlimactic ending. And I'm kind of left wondering the same question I feel about one of the movies we'll be talking about. Did we need this? Did we need a second season of this? Was this really how we wanted the show to come back? I feel like it kind of lost sight of what really made the show great. I see you laughing, so I'm guessing you're kind of on the same page with this.
The first question everyone asked is the last one everyone asked. Did we need this? And the answer is the same. No, we didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, Big Little Lies season 2, man. It just it did not justify the need to return. Like season 1, I liked it more than you, but I think most people would agree it was pretty tightly told story, partially because it's adapting Leanne Moriarty's novel. But it felt, of a piece. And Jean Marfele did a good job with that. And everyone likes to see all these actors. That's the main appeal is the breadth of movie A-list talent. And it was successful. And it won a fuck ton of Emmys the first time around. 8 of the 16 it was nominated for. And then having season 2 come back, I expressed optimism when we talked about the premiere because it looked like they were giving Bonnie or Dew, for example, someone who got the short shrift for the most part in season 1. And obviously having Meryl Streep join your television show sells itself. Yet, the story was, I don't know, kind of thin, man. Like the whole thing with the investigation is dropped pretty quickly. It doesn't actually matter. Really, this season is more about the other lies they're all telling to themselves or their significant others or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And having it not actually be about will they get away with the murder and having it deal with Mary Louise trying to take away Nicole Kidman's kids. Well, again, I like Mary Louise a lot. She was fucking detestable. Great performance. She did her best to save the season, but it just it was a tough hang at times. And I say that just because I didn't say I never really disliked the show. Again, all these actors are just so compulsively watchable and really fun. And Laura Dern, though, Renata is just for the memes in season 2. you know.
Hmm.
But at surface level, shallow take, that's still fun to enjoy. I'll enjoy the memes. I'll enjoy watching her freak the fuck out
Hmm.
and break toys and shit. But it felt like Madeline did not have a whole lot to do this season at all, beyond go through some very vague conflict with Adam Scott that is resolved. So they say, yet not really sure
I
how.
mean, she found
Um,
his text with him and that woman, so it's obviously not.
Honestly, you know what? Right. Oh, shout out a fake boob woman
Yeah.
who just goes away.
Sh-
Okay.
No, she
Um,
she came back and was like, "Yeah,
that's right. Just got
don't
back.
don't gotta complicate it. Let's just do it. Maybe we'll like it." I was like,
Right.
"Wow,
Shoot your shot. I respect it. Um, but honestly, what was a tough hang was Bonnie. Again, I love Zoe Kravitz.
Mhm.
She's great. But having her just be running in the woods or sad moping around at home or in a hospital room, it's just not fun to watch. And also, it's a bit concerning that they do not explore something that she wanted to explore in season 2, the fact that she's the only person of color seemingly in the town of Monterey, which is probably kinda accurate, and also, I think even worse is that when her mom comes around, she's the stereotypical, mystical black person.
Mhm.
We've seen that a lot. It just wasn't the greatest look, but even more importantly, the storyline was just weak, and man, like, I'd never really had a hard time watching the show, but the David E. Kelly scripts, man, just felt like they were really lacking, and that makes a lot of sense considering all the behind the scenes stuff that IndieWire broke regarding the HBO taking away the show from Andrea Arnold after she shot the show, and basically having Jean-Marc Vallée come back in and just cut it up. And I mean, there's 11 editors credited on the show. That's kind of a lot, but it stood out. And I don't really care for a season 3 just because I don't know where we're supposed to go from here.
Yeah."
So
It,
disappointed.
it's funny because your point about the conflict and just the writing on the show feeling thin it's definitely a great point. But I think what made season one so much fun, I mean, it had some deeper themes. It had the obviously the abuse going on between Alexander Skarsgård and Nicole Kidman. Um, but what people liked was just the ridiculousness of it, and uh, the moments where it's like Renata versus Madeline, them trying to like one up each other in these ludicrous ways, like through their
Right.
kids, and
Being absurd moms at school, shit like
and
that.
yeah, and I almost feel like them teaming up and having like one big bad and Meryl Streep, who really wasn't. I mean, like she was like a big bad, I guess, but uh, I don't know. The conflict was mostly between just her and Nicole Kidman and these people on the peripheral. It
Right.
felt kind of like you're taking away the heartbeat of the show, which is that you should be pitting these women against each other and letting them like do ridiculous stuff. And uh, them being all on the same team, I think, took a real element out of it that was a driving force. There obviously were still those ridiculous moments like that, especially with Renata trying to maintain her image of wealth, which I actually think were probably some of the most fun moments. Her
Yeah.
smashing the stuff in the room, her having that ridiculous like 60s party or 70s party at her house. Like those moments were fun. But the moments where it's like Madeline trying to get Ed back, or Jane and her boyfriend,
Oh
or
my
like
god.
you said, Bonnie and her mom and everything with that, it just felt like a tough hang a lot of the time. And
Yeah, I agree. It just need to be more soapy, you know?
yeah,
More
seriously,
drama. And even if they're all on the same side, okay, we all expected the investigation to perhaps
right?
provide that drama, and it just didn't.
No,
Um, and having them walk in at the end to turn themselves in together, I thought was a nice way to wrap it up considering where they took it, but just does kind of feel like a half measure in terms of we're not going to actually explore this at all because it's all about the lies we told along the way, man. And it's I just want it to be more more dramatic than it was. And again, I like all these actors, but it's just underwhelming. And I don't know how much of Andrea Arnold's original cut would have changed this, considering it was still David E. Kelly scripts. Um, but it's interesting, this averaged 41% more viewers per episode. About
Mhm.
12 million people would watch the show every week, counting all the different measures. So, still very much a hit for HBO. And next year, I'm sure they'll run it all in the limited series. Well, in Emmys, it's not a limited series anymore, but you figure Meryl Streep is a lock to get nominated at the very least. But I just kind of lost my excitement for it as it went on, even if I wasn't hating what I was watching or anything like that. Also, shout out Shailene's bangs; they're horrendous throughout the whole show. But whatever.
Did you know Nicole Kidman always wears wigs?
Sometimes they stand out. Was she wearing a wig in this?
Apparently, that's what
Oh,
I found out.
okay.
No idea. I actually don't know if I know what her hair looks like, to be honest. So,
Hmm.
eh,
Fair enough.
could have fooled me. Anyways, I want to move on to something I think we liked a bit more. The Farewell. Lulu Wang wrote and directed.
Wong, bro. Come
Wong.
on, man.
Lulu Wang
Fucking
wrote and
Americans.
directed this this film that has a 100% rating on Rotten Tomato right now.
Damn right.
And my first takeaway, something I actually thought about while I was watching the film, was just give Aquafina more serious roles. Like, stop typecasting her as this like goofy Asian friend in a lot of these, and let her actually show her chops, because I thought she was fantastic in this. There's so much.
Shang-Chi. Maybe that'll be what you want for
Yeah,
Marvel.
that's maybe, but I want to see her doing things like this, like these indie films. She was so good. What was your takeaway of the film?
Oh yeah, this movie like blew me away. I loved it. I went in I don't even know if I watched the trailer, to be honest. I just knew it was a Sundance hit. I knew A24 picked it up, and I knew the Rotten Tomatoes rating was so strong. And I knew Awkwafina was in it. That was really all I think I knew about it. And yeah, I loved it the whole time. I think there's not really much to spoil. The premise is that Aquafina is living in New York City, and she travels back to northern China with her family to be with her grandmother, who is dying of terminal cancer. But per Chinese custom, they won't actually tell her that. So they use this farce of a wedding to justify bringing the family together to say their goodbyes, quote unquote. That's really all the premise is to the movie. And obviously you can maybe guess where the threads go from there. But I just really liked how it weighed drama and comedy, seriousness and levity, and having Aquafina show a lot of range.
Yeah.
Again, as you said, an actress who we've only really seen do comedic work, was great. And it's Lulu Wang's second feature film, her first of major note, and quite the debut, man. I liked it a lot. What'd you think?
No, the thing that you said blew you away was how it really balanced the scales between humor and drama and sadness. But I think what I was most impressed with was how the writing and the storytelling really left you feeling the conflict of the characters. Both sides, Aquafina's family, Billy's family, and her uncle's family, both have a different perspective. Shared in some ways and different in others. There's a huge "what's better, China or America" conversation at one point. But even like what they should do about telling Nai about her illness, you go and you're kind of like on the side of Aquafina, like, oh, they should absolutely tell her, like, Billy's right. But slowly you start to see all different perspectives, and you just kind of leave like conflicted. You're like, I don't know what's the right thing to do.
It doesn't vilify the stance that people like us from America immediately think is unethical.
Exactly.
Done in such a smart way.
And there's that scene and that image of her sitting on the floor in that pink room as her cousin's bride is trying to find her earring or whatever, and she breaks down crying about how hard it was, when she moved to America and how she wants to stay with Nai now. And that scene just sticks in my mind, because I really think that embodies or captures the film so beautifully. This like very basic setting that is still visually captivating, where you see this character going through this range of emotions and just kind of left feeling unsure about everything. I think that really captures something about this sort of transition in life that not many films do this well. And I just really, really impressed with Wang's writing on this. I think she's got a great career ahead of her, especially telling these sort of stories.
Yeah, it's funny. This was actually this story was actually told on This American Life after Lulu struggled to get it made as a film the way she wanted. But yeah, I mean the fact that it's it's majority in Mandarin, I don't think that really hurts at all. I mean, obviously it's you have to keep looking down, you lose the facial expressions at times, but uh, even if I'm reading it, the writing is so strong that
Mhm.
like all the laughs still hit. Like my theater was pretty full. I saw it. I think I saw it 2 weeks ago, and the laugh lines all hit, and also
Mhm.
the sad stuff. Like it was a dusty theater at the end where I was,
Oh yeah.
and honestly, I mean, there's so many great moments. I think there's a lot of like settings and meals, and hotel rooms. I guess those are I think the two best areas for the scenes. But I think the cemetery scene really stands out, just
I-
because it's pretty brief, but it kind of captures all the characters at once. And I just remember the line that he's like, "Oh, no, no, he didn't quit smoking. He just told you that to make you feel better."
yeah.
Fucking pitch perfect.
I know,
And
so good.
meanwhile, this whole time, the farce of the wedding with
Mhm.
the cousin's girlfriend who doesn't even speak Mandarin at all. She only speaks Japanese, and she's just
Yep.
like so confused about what the fuck's going on the whole time. And they just play it for laughs in such a smart way.
Yeah. And
A
I
lot of
thought
good food jokes. It's really really joyous.
Yeah, and I thought the actual wedding was really funny too, seeing the cousin get just like super drunk. The uncle like going up there and starting to cry and just like it seemed like such a weird reaction. It was just and then seeing her and her dad sing No Scrubs. I was like, oh, this is really, really fun. Really, I think just hit so many different marks so well. And shout out to Zhao Shuzhen, the grandmother. Nine was like the most amazing,
Eater.
like, yeah, I couldn't believe it. She just blew me away. Infectious, lovable. I kind of want her to be my grandmother in a sense,
She was
She just
awesome.
is great. Um, any other thoughts before we move on?
Uh, this movie's doing very well at the box office, which is very exciting. It's been in limited release, 100-ish theaters for 3 weeks now. It's going wide this week, opposite Hobbs and Shaw, that counter programming. But it's funny, limited release, right? It's already up to 3.68 million domestically. That ranks 24th out of the 77 movies A24 has distributed, and they haven't even gone wide with it yet. So I'm really happy this movie found an audience, given that it is a movie with subtitles. It's a small scale movie. Uh, Aquafina's not an A-lister in the traditional sense. So that's just awesome to see. And I hope it continues to do well as it expands this week. Everyone will have a chance to watch it. So I hope that this trend continues because it's a movie that is worth everyone's time, obviously.
Absolutely. From small scale to big scale, probably the biggest scale, Lion
Hey,
King. We're a little late on this one, so maybe we can keep this one a little bit shorter.
yep.
But Jon Favreau's live action Lion King with just an absolutely stacked cast: Donald Glover, Beyonce, Seth Rogen, Chiwetel Jesus Christ, Chiwetel Ejiofor. Is that
Yep.
right? Billy
Ejiofor.
Eichner.
Yeah.
Yeah. John
Both are.
Oliver, Keegan Michael Key, Eric Andre. I don't have the kids' names written down here. Do you have them there? Should give them a shout out
Isn't it the kid from
from us.
Us?
Yeah. So
JD
McCrary,
McCrary is
and then
Simba. Who's young
where's the
Nala?
little girl? Man, I had it right there and it just went away.
Oh yeah, Shahadi Wright Joseph,
Yes.
who was in Us. Yeah,
Yeah, and
shout out to her.
fantastic. She's
killing
great. Yeah. So again, Big Little Lies. I kind of premise this, but did we need this movie? Sitting at 53% Rotten Tomatoes. And it's the same question we have for all these live action remakes. Did we need this? Where do you stand, Dave? Let's start there.
Here's the thing: Beauty and the Beast remake, even Aladdin, which surprised us this year. Those movies at least endeavor to change things or add to the story in such a way that it's that didn't feel like a carbon copy, and
Mhm.
thus I was more okay with it. I feel like if you're of the frame of mind that all these remakes are a waste of time, make something else instead. You can't then also be a stickler for sticking to the source material. So
Right.
thus, I always had an open mind about Will Smith, and I actually liked what they did with him in Aladdin. Right. The problem with the Lion King is, when me carrying this frame of reference, is they managed to change virtually nothing, yet making the movie 30 minutes longer in the process. And the whole time, I'm just watching this, and I mean, we all know what's going to happen. We know the beats. That's fine.
Mhm.
But perhaps it's the animation, which on itself is fucking gorgeous and
Yep.
incredibly impressive. It's a technological masterpiece for sure. But I did not get the emotional beats from the faces of these photorealistic animals. Thus, nothing was really landing for me. And if the emotional beats of animals talking aren't landing for you, I don't know what else the movie can do for you, because almost all the songs are truncated from the original version, despite the movie being longer. We don't really understand how that happened. And arguably the best part of the original Lion King, Scar, with Jeremy Irons, the performance from Ejiofor, I think, is strong in a vacuum. He has a rich voice,
Mhm.
but Scar, the original Scar, is just much more flamboyant. I think Irons, who's just a capital T thespian, just really brings it. Such a memorable performance and characterization. And Scar just felt just more down the middle villainous this time around. Like, yes, there are some more sentences spoken about his dislike of his older brother Mufasa being in the movie. And I saw some people saying, "Oh, well, we understand Scar's motivations more now. This movie's better for that."
That voice.
But the performance is not as strong.
Yeah, man.
And
If you're doing Scar, just to cut you off real quick, if you're doing Scar and you don't do like a really serious like "Long live the king" and you shorten it to "Long live the king" and just hit him in the face, like you really just you're missing the point.
right. And again, I'm not telling you to carbon copy. By all means, make changes like the swipe right that you just referenced.
Mhm.
But like Scar's design is different. I
Yeah,
thought Scar's design was cool. You
yeah.
know, um, Rafiki, some changes with that, with his staff and stuff. Fine, whatever. But I just don't think the emotional beats really hit at all. And another thing I really noticed too, watching this time around, you're with the kids a lot, man. We don't really
Mhm.
get the adults that much. Meaning, you don't get a lot of Donald Glover and Beyonce. And then when I'm watching, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm not liking Donald Glover and Beyonce's performances with this at all. I thought DG was pretty
Reading the
mediocre, and
lines.
yeah, and Beyonce was just. Uh, I just felt like she wasn't given the right direction to fit where they were going, and
Can I make an assumption for you that your three favorite performances were probably Billy Eichner as Timon, Seth Rogen as Pumbaa, and John Oliver as Zazu?
yeah, Oliver Zazu. I thought the Keegan Michael Key and
Yeah.
Andre, they had some funny quips as the hyenas.
But
Cool.
the thing about all five
But yeah,
of those characters is they got to do
nothing.
something with their characters.
Yeah,
They got to take chances, like mix it up a little bit from their originals. Donald Glover and Beyonce, I guess, other than Beyonce's song, pretty much had to just read the lines from the original Lion King. They were like, "Yeah, these characters on the peripherals, these supporting characters, we'll let you change those up, but Nala and Simba, and Mufasa. Those are characters we can't change anything about that. And it's not even like you need to change something dramatic about their background, but just let Donald Glover be Donald Glover. Let him say some weird, crazy shit and see how it goes. I mean, it seems like
right.
they were like, this part is something that's unchangeable, and that kind of handcuffed them. But
Yeah. I mean, Can You Feel the Love Tonight happens during the day. Fine,
right,
whatever. But at that time where Simba's in his like early 20s stoner mindset, right? DG could have done great with that if
yeah,
maybe he could have communicated that better. But
hmm
I'd really just there was an uncanny valley for me, which does not happen often. But like with the the voice work mixing with the lions' faces, and it's like even in the beginning of Mufasa's like uh or when Simba's like I'm still your pal, or no, Mufasa's like I'm still your dad, right? In the
Mhm.
original, it's this fucking hammer line musical drop feels moment when they start like wrestling in the grass and stuff. And you look at Mufasa's face in this new one, it's just fucking stone cold, man, because there's
Mhm.
nothing communicated because he's a realistic looking lion.
Yeah. Right, and
So
that that that
it
speaks.
just didn't work for me. It just didn't work.
Yeah, and I think that just speaks to what you lose with these live action remakes is um, you lose a lot of the magic of it. And something like Aladdin, you can capture a lot of that. Like the magic carpet, the genie were pretty good for the most part. Not as good as the original, but still pretty good. This, I mean, when you do, I just can't wait to be king, and you don't have that like animal pyramid that kind of like is the crescendo of it, so to speak, or um, even like we talked about the scene of them singing Hakuna Matata that was previewed on, I think it was Late Night with Jimmy Kimmel or Good Morning
Mhm.
America or something like that. And we're kind of like, well, they're not going to be able to do some of the things they normally do. Like they're not going to be able to do the head bob because those animals wouldn't actually do that. They're not going to swing
Mhm.
from vines into the water, but those add such just like magical like wonderment to the original that you just can't capture with these. And especially one like Lion King, I think suffers from that because like you said, they're animals and you can't replicate some of the things that you could if it, like with Aladdin where they're humans, or even Beauty and the Beast where they become humans.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I think like most of you, I was really blown away by Billy Eichner as
Yep.
Timon. Totally takes it over. Fantastic, and the "Be Your Guest" uh, cameo joke, uh, fucking choice, and
Yep.
Rogan as well as Pumbaa. Really played off Eichner well, and he did some of those classic understated deliveries that he does when he's like in call and response, and they were both great. But it's a problem when those are the people blowing you away because those are supporting characters that don't show up until the end of Act Two,
Hmm.
and it's just man, I'm just watching it again because I watched the damn near all of the original Lion King on YouTube because most of the movie is on YouTube and the clip channels and stuff. What stood out to me was the gorge scene, shocker, but like in the beginning of it when Scar runs to Mufasa and he like feigns, obviously like desperation and fear when he's telling him what's happening. The faces on Mufasa and Scar really communicate that
Sell it.
emotion.
Yeah.
Right. And when that happened this time around, there's nothing. I know I've said this 10 times already, but like I just can't feel anything. So it's the first of these remakes where I'm like, it's hard to find much redeeming about it. And I didn't actually expect. I thought this was arguably the safest of all the remakes, but I guess I didn't factor in the animal faces of it all. So, but not that they care about what I think. This movie made 191.7 million in its first weekend, which is a July record, breaking the mark set by Deathly Hallows Part Two. And was the second highest debut of the year, the largest PG rated debut of the year,
Hmm.
and now gives Disney 13 of the top 15 largest opening weekends. So
Yep.
Disney don't give a
So,
shit.
so far, it's grossed what 350.8 million in North America. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah.
And then
That's like
it's
right with Spider-Man already.
yeah, and it's close to a billion. 962.7 worldwide. Pretty amazing that it's still pulling this. Also, Disney has grossed nearly $8 billion from the movies this year. Uh, pretty pretty nuts.
Yep. Go see the
Anyways,
farewell.
yeah, please go see The Farewell. Why don't we move on to another film I think we both think you should go see? Quentin Tarantino's ninth, 10th film. I see people
Ninth.
getting
If you
this confused. It's the ninth.
Yeah,
Uh,
combining Kill Bill together, it makes
right.
nine.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Um, Sitting at 85% Rotten Tomatoes, $40 million opening weekend. Uh, whew, this is not what I expected it was going to be,
Oh,
and
really?
uh, it left me confused at first in the theater, and then once I kind of figured out, I was like, oh, this is great. I really enjoyed it. I think this is probably, I mean, I really like Django, so it's hard to say my favorite since Inglourious Bastards, but we'll talk about where it falls in our QT rankings probably at the end, but it's close to top 5, I think. How did you feel about this 9th film from Quentin Tarantino?
Right. So this movie is 2 hours and 40 minutes long, and despite all that, God, I was like spellbound the whole time. I was just honestly really blown away with so much of it. You know, we've always known Tarantino is such a lover of old school Hollywood and has this granular encyclopedic knowledge of shit that wasn't even popular or well known or even well liked, right? Like he's just a huge nerd in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
And lately, the past few years, he's made lots of movies that are more pastiche following his 90s run. We talked all about this last week with our Tarantino discussion. So check out that for more about that. But knowing all that about Quentin Tarantino, and then knowing he's making a movie about the thing he loves the most, Hollywood, specifically the late 60s, the golden age of it all, definitely presented an opportunity where you could maybe think maybe he would just do what he always wanted to do. And sure enough, he just recreated Los Angeles in 1969. And it's just like the most believable thing ever, despite the fact that there's fantastical aspects of the story and where it goes. And I fucking loved it, man. And I thought, I mean, having Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt join up for the first time is a flex in and of itself. But I think they're both fantastic, especially DiCaprio, who is asked to carry a lot and succeeds for sure. We'll get into that. But, you know, I mean, it has tons of cameos, tons of actors, young and old, that we've seen from his movies before and other newcomers. And man, it's just, there's so much here. And I just want to watch it again just to now look for things now I know what's happening. But I was kind of blown away.
Well, oh boy, it's official. Rick Dalton's a has-been.
Yes. I'm a nobody. 8 whiskey sours.
Yeah.
4.
You had to have 8. You couldn't stop at 4.
I'm a fucking alcoholic.
All right, that's it. From here on out, no more. Takes out the flask, starts drinking immediately. I was like, so good. Yeah, DiCaprio is the first thing I really want to talk about, because I mean, Tarantino always gets something impressive out of him. You think about him as Calvin Candy in Django, and he's in that movie for like 30 minutes out of like a 2-hour movie, and he got nominated for a supporting actor. And just unbelievable. He steals almost every scene he's in that. I feel like he's almost better in this. This might be my favorite DiCaprio since Departed, maybe.
I don't even know if I'd say Departed. I mean, did you not like Revenant? You didn't like watch him get fucked up by a bear?
he was good in that, but it's such a
this is better than that.
Yeah,
obviously.
Such a survival performance in that. He gets just to be so.
I think Wolf of Wall Street's probably the one to go with, just because that's such a charismatic, showy performance.
A lot of meat on that bone.
Either way, this is top tier Leo, which is really impressive to say, because Leo's in his late 40s. Like, he's been on the block forever at this point.
Yeah, he's just magnetic in this film and plays this really sweet, insecure star. Supposed to be like Burt Reynolds-ish, I guess. Yeah. And the thing is, there's that scene in the trailer where the little girl says, "That's the best acting I've ever seen," and he starts to tear up, and I feel like that really captures that character so well. You know, he's that insecurity drives him at all times, and the way that he interplays with Brad Pitt's Cliff Booth is so good, because basically they're just like, all right, you're gonna be this insecure movie star, and you're just gonna be a mix of Aldo and Rusty from Ocean's 11. And man, Brad Pitt, it was really fun to watch him, and even though, I mean, his character, I think, is not as fun to watch as Leo, obviously, still every time you're with him, you really just kind of get into the scene. Like I was really worried about him when he goes up to Spawn Ranch and just like the eeriness of that. And that scene just in general left me just flabbergasted.
Right.
And I think, and this is just kind of circling back to where we started, my expectations for this movie was that this would be a little bit more like, like a Pulp Fiction or something like that. But really it felt more like Jackie Brown in a lot of ways.
Warm.
And yeah, really warm, really sweet, but really had moments where your anxiety was really up, and he builds that tension, that drama so well, so masterfully. Tarantino is just obviously one of the best directors of our time. What other characters or performances stood out to you?
Yeah, well, just another thing on Pitt. When they show him leaving Rick's house, I believe to go home for the first time, and you see him just whip it down, was it Sunset or Hollywood Boulevard, wherever it was.
Yeah.
And it's just recreated 60s LA street the whole time. Meanwhile, he's fucking flying down this road. I could have watched him just drive for 30 minutes. That was fucking epic. But, oh my God. Honestly, you Spawn Ranch, right? There are real life characters in this movie. That's kind of the obvious stuff. The Manson family is here. The Manson murders are here. Sharon Tate is Margot Robbie. And your whole time you're set up to expect to see that murder. And it's like, oh, is that distasteful Tarantino again? No, it's another alt history like Inglourious, and you find that out in time. But seeing all the real life characters and real life references, even beyond the obvious stuff like the Mansons, like Damian Lewis cameos as fucking Steve McQueen at the Playboy Mansion scene. It just has like 4 lines. And later on, you have Leo. You see a scene of Leo if he was actually in The Great Escape, that Steve McQueen classic movie, and like apparently Rick had lost out for it. And oh man, it's just, the world is just this fictional alt LA is just drawn to a T in such a way that whether it's real life figures or background settings or the intricacy of the TV production landscape that that Leo's going through, man, it's just, God, there's just so much going on. It's awesome. But yeah, I think Pitt, you're right. Pitt plays more of an everyman. Something we've seen a little more from Pitt, where he's just kind of a charismatic. He's a talker, but it's not as showy as Rick by design. And actually, it would have been nice if Rick and Cliff had, I think, even more scenes together. They actually kind of are apart for a large stretch of the movie. It's funny. There's a lot of these flashback scenes. Sometimes they're flashback to Rick on the set of something he had made in the past. But I think one of the standout ones, of course, is when Cliff's on the roof and he's just thinking back about why he couldn't be the stuntman, and it's like this 15-minute thing, and you're like, "Where's this going? Oh wait, that's where it went. This is awesome." Meanwhile, we got to see him fucking fight Bruce Lee. Like, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, on the set of the Green Hornet, just
Mike Mo,
unbelievable. Yeah. What a freaking flex by Tarantino. Like, writing the script and being like, I'm just going to have a 15-minute like memory of Brad Pitt fighting Bruce Lee. And this is, I think, really what's at the heart of this is Tarantino just wanted to make this movie where he had all these ideas about Hollywood and these what ifs and these fun like quips or stories he might have thought of or heard like third hand. He just wanted to like put them all in a movie somehow. And it just makes it so much fun to go story to story. And where, I got to about the part where it jumps forward 6 months, and I was like,
Italy.
Not much has happened in this movie, like this really took place around like 3 days or something like that, maybe 2 days, and
right. Apart from the flashbacks, yeah.
And then all of a sudden we jump forward 6 months, and I'm like, how are we jumping forward at this point? Like, how much time is left? I don't understand where this movie's going. And then, it gets into the Tarantino ultra-violent kind of rewriting history a bit. But even then, I feel like he infuses humor so well. And this is something we talked about last week when we reviewed all of our Tarantino movies. But this is kind of like where he snaps back into like Django or Inglourious Bastards Tarantino instead of like Jackie Brown, where you have the Manson family in the car and they start like fighting with each other about not knowing who Rick Dalton is. Sorry, I don't know every fucking fascist on television, Sharon. Like, and just like then Brad Pitt smoking that cigarette dipped in acid and not knowing if what was happening was real or not. And it's such a funny element to the whole like break-in. I was just like amazed at how, and then Leonardo DiCaprio, Rick Dalton, literally just filleting that girl in the pool. I was just like, this is some extra shit, but so good, just so good in so many ways. So, a lot to love about this. What else stood out to you? Or what else did you like? I know there's a lot to.
Oh, of course. I thought Pacino was really good as Marvin Schwartz, not Schwartz, the producer. I thought he made a nice impression early on. Austin Butler really impressed me as Tex, who is the real life, one of the real life murderers, of course. And I'm a lot more excited about him playing Elvis in the Baz Luhrmann Elvis movie now, because he was just cast in that. I liked him a lot. And that devil, you're doing the devil's work line or whatever is actually what Tex Watson really said in real life, which is kind of scary. I also love Margaret Qualley as Pussycat, one of the Manson girls. Obviously, we know her from Leftovers, and I mean, there's just, I mean, who else was there? Lena Dunham was one of the girls. Sydney Sweeney from Euphoria was there. Dakota Fanning, of course, was Squeaky, who later goes to jail for trying to assassinate President Ford. There's a lot of real people in this. And then, of course, like in the ultimate Tarantino flex, you just have all these cameos from people that barely have a few lines, or like Oliphant in here, Scoot McNairy, Clifton Collins, Damian Lewis, as I said.
Scoot McNairy being just like an extra for like one line of dialogue. I was like, what? Like, unbelievable. I mean, even sorry, I'm forgetting his name, but from Reservoir Dogs, Mark, the guy who cuts the guy's ear off.
Michael Madsen.
Yeah, Michael Madsen. Yeah, he shows
Bounty Law.
Yeah, one line on Bounty Law, and like that's it. It's just super cool to see all these people just kind of like pop in and out. We haven't even talked about Margot Robbie playing Sharon Tate. There's some controversy after this premiered at Cannes about how Tarantino wrote this role, but didn't really give Margot Robbie a lot to do or to say. How did you feel about her portrayal of Tate and kind of her lack of dialogue in the film?
Right. And I did think Margot at that time responded well, saying that she, read the script and knew what role she was signing up for. So I feel like a lot of people were like kind of like ignoring her thoughts on the matter when charging Tarantino with this. So I thought she handled that well. But yeah, I really liked what she did, and I like what Quentin was doing with it, because I mean, the best moment for her is probably when she goes walking down the whatever street that was and goes to see one of her movies in the theater, and seeing her just be amongst the public and listen to people laugh or be scared at the moments they're supposed to in one of Tate's actual movies, right? And it just felt like it was kind of celebrating who Sharon Tate was, and who she could have been had she not been tragically murdered, and while yes, she's not the focus of the story by any means, I think the fact that she survives at the end also goes a long way. There might have been more charges of exploitation, you're exploiting the tragedy for your story if you kind of kill her off without her having much say in the matter, if you did the movie differently. But I think ultimately that's the movie theater scene really just kind of makes you think about what could have been, of course. And it also adds into, I mean, there's a lot of other meta stuff going on in this movie and a lot of other commentary. So it just kind of fit the vibe Quentin was going. But what did you think? Did you want more from Margot? Because again, she isn't in the movie a whole lot, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I think I did want a little bit more, but I didn't really have a problem with the way the role was written. She's magnetic every time she's on screen. You just can't take your eyes off her. And I mean, it helps that she's just an incredibly beautiful person, but really just her overall spirit and charisma shine through no
presence.
matter what role she's playing. Um, yeah, that I loved that movie theater scene, like watching her like bop down the street, the way it like followed her shoes as she's walking down the street. I thought it was a really cool shot. So, you know, seeing her like look around the movie theater as they're watching The Wrecking Crew. You know, that Dean Martin film that Sharon Tate was in was really cool. And actually like then seeing the actual Sharon Tate on screen, I felt like was like a nice like nod.
Good point.
Just really, really well done. And also with her at the Playboy Mansion scene dancing, you already kind of talked about it with Damian Lewis as Steve McQueen, but I thought she was like magnetic in that as well and fun to like watch her like be like a 60s hippie type person at that point. You know, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about things that really stood out to me about the film. And what I really liked about this movie was how quickly it put you into place. You know, it really made you feel like you were in LA. The setting, the set design, you know, showing the different restaurants and really actually showing like the old school places, I thought was really great. And then also the music in this was really, really well done. The first song that comes to my mind when I think about this is "Hush" by, I think it's Deep Purple. That plays I think earlier in it, but then there's also a good Rolling Stones drop later on. I'm forgetting what the song is at this time, but there was just a lot of really good song drops. I felt like it really gave you a sense of place very quickly. So just overall, really, really. Oh, and of course the Mrs. Robinson drop when Pitt's watching the hippie walk across the street. Just a really wonderful movie moment. I felt like any songs or anything like that stood out to you?
I think you got. I think that nails them. To be honest.
Where's this fall for you with Tarantino?
Well, here's the thing, man. Like a lot of his movies don't have like a grand metatextual message all the time, and movies don't need to do that. But in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin is, I think, kind of expertly commenting on his own mortality as a creative, a filmmaker, a person that people care about what he does through the prism of Rick Dalton, a has-been actor who's definitely on the downswing. And I think that message about finding self-worth in your later years, and you know, it's also connected to Cliff, where Cliff has been struggling to get work, and as Rick is on the downswing, he no longer can keep Cliff going as well. Like, I think that's what really sticks with me, is that there really is a lot going on in terms of commentary in this movie that also happens to be this incredible period piece that involves lots of real people. And I think that's what will stick with me the most. And in terms of where it ranks, I think top 5 for sure. I think that's safe ass bar. I mean, what I say, I had Pulp, Kill Bill, and Bastards. Are, I had Reservoir Dogs 4. I mean, shit, this might be
4 or 5,
3 or 4. I don't know.
Wow,
I really want to see it again, man.
Topping Bastards, damn, says a lot. I'd probably have it right around 5. You know, Django, Bastards, Pulp are pretty unassailable for me. It might be 4. You know, I really like Reservoir Dogs still, though, so I'd probably go 4 or 5. Never playing those two together.
The thing is, it's like this. So like, it just feels like it's like the opus of Tarantino, and like that's to say it's not his best movie, like capital B best, but like I'm just like just thinking like, where does he go from here for that 10th movie? Like what does he do now? Like, because you just did so much in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's like, do you take a step back? Do you do like the way Hateful Eight felt after Django? Like, I'm just not sure where to go from here. It almost feels like this was his swan song of a movie, because it's literally everything he's ever wanted to explore. And you know, another thing, it's like commentary, like Tarantino almost struggled as an actor first, right? And that's another thing that you can just, there's just so many through lines and like things you can, I mean, heck, he even makes fun of the foot fetish charge he's had in this movie. And, you know, and meanwhile there's red apple cigarettes, because of course there is. Like,
Yeah,
There's so much here.
all the callbacks to his other movies. One of the Italian directors is Antonio Margheriti, and the dog food is Wolf's dog food, referring back to Mr. Wolf from Pulp Fiction, and obviously the one that everybody got was the sauerkraut. What was it, like fire sauerkraut, or the heated up sauerkraut, whatever, flamethrower from Rick Dalton in the movie. But he really, I think, this is a film I think where people are going to have to see 2 or 3 times to really see everything, appreciate everything to the level it is. And I think that just speaks to Tarantino's greatness. And I really hope this continues to do well at the box office and gets the shine that it deserves, because I think the more and more people watch this, the more and more they'll start to think about films in a different way. Because I think this really challenges your idea of like what movies can be, and that's what Tarantino's done really well, is challenge those. So any last thoughts before we wrap up?
I mean, you said you hope it does well. It did make 40 million and change in its first weekend, which is actually a high watermark for Quentin. And that's despite the fact it's an R-rated movie that's 2 hours and 40 minutes long, and adults don't actually flock the way opening weekends do, the way younger demos do. So you hope that this movie will have good legs the way like Django did, the way Bastards did. And it's the most expensive film to date. It's also his widest release film to date, and again, it's his first film without Weinstein involved. Sony, of all people, actually has it, so good win for them yet again after Spider-Man. Interestingly enough, he negotiated this unique copyright agreement where after 30 years or so that it'll actually revert back to him. So that's something not very common for directors, even big name directors. And apparently the reason Warner Brothers couldn't finish the deal with Quentin is because everyone was saying, well, if you do this copyright deal with QT, then you're also going to have to do it with Nolan next time. And because Sony has a smaller stable of directors that they work with a lot, they could take this chance and nail down doing the Quentin movie.
Yeah,
so pretty interesting.
Definitely interesting.
Yeah, I hope it does well, and good start. So that's great.
We really ran the gambit here today. Good, bad, and everywhere in between. What do we got for next week?
So naturally, we don't have much of anything next week. We have Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw, which I'm looking forward to just because I've seen all the other Fast and Furious movies. So I'll definitely report back on how that goes. I also plan to see The Art of Self-Defense, this small indie black comedy movie with Jesse Eisenberg. It's supposed to be great. It's been out a few weeks now. And other than that, man, we'll maybe catch up on something else. There's really no music that we know of as of now. No shows ending or really starting yet. Again, that's the week after. So we'll find more, but that's all I got right now.
So tune into Nowstalgia next week for all that awesome content we'll be bringing you. We'll find some stuff to talk about for sure. Follow us at NowstalgiaPod on Twitter, and go to soundcloud.com/NowstalgiaPod to find all the ways to catch the podcast. And lastly, give us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes and a subscription on YouTube. We'll see you next week.